So I thought I would do something different this week instead of another rune reading, and I want to talk about something that's been on my mind a lot recently, and that is the matters relating to the Disir. Now, there was a Disir blut that has just gone, which is in late February, and I want to kind of explain what the Disir are. So I kind of got two source materials here that I'm going to read from, and at the end I'll add my little take on it as well. So the first source material got relating to what the Disir are is in the Encyclopedia of Norse and Germanic Folklore Mythology Magic, and I'll read what it says in there. Disir are female deities who may be identical to the Idisi, cited in the first Merseyberg charm, and whose name can also be found in the work of Tacticus in Idisia Vissel, the name of a plain where Germanicus met Ariminus Hermann in battle. The tradition is quite muddled because the Disses are much like the Valkyries and the Norns, the Germanic fates, and play the role of guardian spirits as well, which makes them akin to the fylgja. It is said they rush up when children are born, which likens them to Roman fairies. The Disses were also regarded as local land spirits that governed fertility, as testified by the Landisir Setiania stones of the Disses of the land. In Issia Fjordur region of northwestern Iceland, several place names also attest to the reality of the worship they received. The Disses are probably best interpreted in the context of the mother goddess. It should be noted that the goddess Thea is called Vanadis, the Dis of the Vanir, and the giantess Skadi is called Ondiodis, the Dis of the skis. So that was the first source material, and what I would say about the Disir is it's really kind of like, you could put it as an umbrella term for all female spirits. But they are, I would say, maybe distinct in some ways. I would say that the Valkyries or the Welkrieg are a form of the Disir. And then I would also say that Freya, like it says in that book, and also Skadi, and also a lot of the goddesses are also Disir. So I would say it kind of encompasses and is an umbrella term for female ancestral deities and female ancestral spirits in general. Now I'm going to read from the second source material, which is this book called Weird Walkers, Techniques of Northern Tradition Shamanism by Raven Caldera. And this is particularly very interesting. The Norse word for the ancient equivalent of Disir was, at least some of the time, as far as we can tell, Alfar, which is problematic because it also refers to a non-human race of beings living in one or more of the other worlds, very different from Disir, which is actually a word for a female deity. This is likely due to the fact that to an ancient peasant, the various kinds of white blended together. They were all powerful and mysterious creatures who should be venerated, and it was difficult to tell, and they likely didn't care anyway, which is sort of white was which. Another theory on the Alpha issue is that it was started by people who were actually descended from the Alpha, and legitimately calling on them for ancestral purposes. Either way, in our modern era, it's confusing and often a problem, especially for spirit workers who need to make clear identifications between this white and that white, if only because they are dealt with and propitiated differently. Appropriated differently. In my personal practice, I don't use the word Alfar to refer to ancestors, only to the Fae folk. I tend to say the Disir and their beloved fathers, lovers, and sons. If they want a better term, they can give it to me. So when in this work they're referring to the white. White means basically spirit, like the Vata. I would have disagreements. I think the Alfar are connected to the ancestors. They are definitely more primordial ancestors, but yes, I would say also the Alfar are non-human as well, or non-manars, which is the term I use. So it goes on to say, it is common in heathenry and in many other indigenous religions to maintain ancestral altars and otherwise venerate one's honoured dead. Within heathenry, it is one's female ancestors, otherwise known as the Disir, that receive the greatest attention. There's evidence that a special ritual called Disir was performed in Scandinavia in honour of the Disir at the beginning of winter Yule, and special temples to them were called Disir Salia. Now, yes, you could say the Disir was sometimes before beginning winter, some variations of tradition, but I would say more the Disir was more something in late February and kind of aligns also with Imbolc, which is the St. Bridget in the Celtic tradition. So, but as it goes on to say, they are frequently mentioned in the sagas and in Eddic literature, and are often said to come to their descendants in dreams. Scholar Rodolph Cynic, in his 1993 Dictionary of Northern Mythology, specifically notes that Disir were dead women, or the souls of dead women. Simic goes on to note that the Disir apparently combined the functions of fertility goddesses, personal guardians, and warrior goddesses, and their worship was tied closely into the cult of the Maturinae, or mothers. It is not uncommon for a specific Dis to attach herself to a family line and serve as guardian of that line. One's female ancestors were traditionally invested with an immense amount of Hemingya and Megan. They habitually maintained a strong interest in the goings-on of their families and watched over successive generations. There are examples of heroes seeking out their guardian Dis for special knowledge or power, such as when Svigvag seeks out his dead mother Groa for advice on how to win the giantess Mongloth. Amongst many modern heathens, and especially amongst spirit workers, honouring one's Disir has remained an integral part of their ancestral practices. Maintaining an ancestral altar replete with pictures and possessions once belonging to one's female dead is an excellent way to start incorporating them into one's devotional practices. Setting out food, particularly the appropriate ethnic dishes, drink, incense, and flowers, are all appropriate ways of honouring them. Researching one's genealogy and adding that knowledge to one's ancestral practices is a nice way to become more involved with one's dead, one that the goddess saga may be willing to assist with. It's important that one's ancestral altar be a living, vital part of one's spiritual life. Talk to the ancestors, tell them about your life, your goals, anything that is important to you, invite them to become an active part of your family. This has to be an ongoing relationship, not something done once in a blue moon and forgotten about. Disir are high ancestral spirits. They may not even be related to you directly by family. If you are strongly linked into a specific spiritual practice or tradition, you may get adopted by an appropriate Dis. They can be invaluable guides. When you die, one can be a low spirit, but can be elevated by the manner in which one's descendants honour you. Most who try to do Disir work would have to do some kind of elevation of their own spiritual line if they're going to work with their own family line, because I don't think that most people in American or British culture feel that their own family line would be adequate when compared with the qualities of the Disir mentioned in law. This is a problem with modern Disir worship. Most don't find the rich reservoir of power and experience within their own immediate lines. This actually provides an amazing opportunity to elevate one's line by making appropriate offerings and prayers. It also provides the opportunity to discover powerful women already lurking within the line of one's honoured dead. While one might question the relevance to modern spirit work of women who died having lived the most mundane of lives, it is the combination of the gifts and struggles and knowledge of all those who preceded us that made it possible for us to be born in here and now with the skills and gifts we possess. Furthermore, Disir are powerfully protective and can do much to ease the transition between worlds. Spirit workers with non-human blood should be aware that they not only have human Disir to honour, but also those of their non-human bloodline. It's important to remember, however, that there is something to be gained from purely mundane human Disir. While it may be easier for the spirit worker to link into the non-human bloodlines, there is worth and a value in both. A gifted spirit worker can strengthen his or her entire lineage, paying homage to those who may not have had the skills or freedom to do the works themselves, but who have been counting on their descendants 3 or 4 generations hence, in other words us, to do the work to strengthen the entire line, the work that they themselves laid the foundation for by their struggles and sacrifices. So, I would add to that, I would also say that from my perspective, if you are the eldest born of a family line, or both family lines, on both your mother's and father's lines, but it could also be just one, you will have a fylgja. Now, what a fylgja is it connects you to all the female ancestors of that line, meaning you are able to communicate and they communicate with you. And this communication harkens back to basically all the ancestors going way back into the primordial. So if you have a fylgja, meaning you're the eldest male of a line, or a bloodline, or both bloodlines, then you are connected to the Disir, to all of them within your lines. So that's what I've got to say about it for now. I will be getting back to this topic. It's a huge thing to unpack and to explain to everyone, but that's all I've got to say for now, and until next time, farewell.